Do you ever find yourself falling into the trap? I know I've definitely done it in the past. I have to catch myself every once in a while of thinking, oh, the power players in the country, the elites, as the media calls them, they run everything. They must know something more than what we know. Don't ever fall into that trap of thinking that our elected members of Congress are even that smart. Now, have there been brilliant people? Are there brilliant people now in the halls of Congress on Capitol Hill? Of course there are, but for the majority of them, they're not that smart. They're just not. Don't ever call them elites. They're not. Perfect example of this is Texas Representative Jasmine Crockett. You probably saw this story already. We'll dig a little deeper into this whole thing. Never double down on dumb, which is exactly what she did. But the guy who she was talking about, Lee Zeldin, he's the EPA administrator, he handled this perfectly. And I know this kind of is like an outlier story revolving around the Epstein thing. I promise you I'm not going to get into Epstein. This is more about their reaction to it and how this is backfiring, because it's amazing to witness. It really is. But it's actually, believe it or not, it's actually great news. There's more great news. Here's another lie we were told. Were we really led to believe that Trump and Elon, remember a couple of months back? Oh, they're fighting. There was a little spat. Did we really think they weren't going to get together and work on deals ever again? Please. The boys are back in town. And speaking of town, leaving town, weren't we told? I remember specifically a few months ago, we were told that the economy was going to be so bad that no one was going to be able to afford to fly or especially drive for Thanksgiving. Yeah, that turned out to be a bunch of crap. Get ready for record holiday travel. That shows you something else. People believe in the economy. The futures are very confident, so that's good news, too. We'll get to it here in a second. Right now, I want to thank you for joining me. As always, all the platforms, replay later on, audio podcast, or just live right now for Wicked Radio. All your favorite platforms. Don't forget, on audio podcast only, just remember to subscribe. On Spotify, you got to press like. That's what they mean by subscribe, and then you're all set and ready to go. Put notifications on for when you know we're going live. All right, let's get to the good news here. Classic story of the media taking hold of something and telling you, oh, this is, and hyping it up and creating fear and distrust. Remember all the hyped up thing? And were there a couple of spats about policy and Doge between Eli and Trump a couple of months ago? About Elon, excuse me, not Eli, Elon and Trump a couple of months ago? Of course there were. Of course they disagreed on things. Elon and his Doge dorky geniuses found all kinds of corruption, and he wanted to keep on going, get it done. We found it at the federal level. It's in Congress. Let's push a little further, and I think Trump pushed back on that. Elon was pissed off. I'm sure Trump was too. Listen, two massive egos. You could make an argument for the two biggest egos in the world right now. What does it mean they were going to never work together again? That was never true. In fact, the boys are back in town. This is Trump just yesterday, talking about Elon and reference him specifically.
Well, if you think about it, if Kamala, who's the same basic thing, grossly incompetent, he was incompetent, they're all incompetent because their policies are incompetent. Open borders, men playing in women's sports, transgender for everybody. I mean, they got the worst policy. I don't talk about it too much because if I talk about it, they might change. So, no, I don't talk about it. I tell people, don't talk about it. Wait till 2 weeks before the election and hit the hell out of them. Right? We talked about that, right, Elon? He said, we wait 2 weeks before.
This is before the election, all through there, and they were in together, and Elon was telling him, listen, on social media, this is how you do it. Get the most bang for your buck, and wait 2 weeks before the election. Then you come out with this stuff, and then the Doge thing happened. I honest to God, think they worked together in cahoots to tell the media that to take the heat off a little bit so Doge could do its work, without the spotlight on it so much. I honestly think there was a little bit of disagreement there on how to go about policy. I think they concocted this fight together to take the media off their backs and to throw them down a rabbit hole that wasn't true. I swear to God. Yesterday after the meeting, and by the way, the meeting was the U.S. Saudi Investment Forum in Washington, D.C. After that, Elon posts on his X account, which is the biggest in the world, I'd like to thank President Trump for all he has done for America and the world. Yeah, the boys are back. But the takeaway is, for you and me and normal people, I don't think they were ever gone. I really don't. At some point, with all the work, and remember Earlier on in the year when Doge was just on fire, and by the way, they haven't stopped uncovering corruption. Remember all of the media attention on it. I mean, it was 8, 9, 10 weeks in a row where it's just nonstop coverage of Doge and what they were doing through the mainstream media because they were uncovering their corruption. I think Elon had to get back to his other companies, first of all, and I think they had to take the heat off. I think this whole spat we were told about for weeks on end was all concocted by the media. There were a couple of disagreements here and there, for sure. There was never any breakup. That was ridiculous, so don't buy it. And don't buy this. Boy, and I promised you before, I'm not gonna make this about, nothing's gonna happen from this Epstein story. We're all tired of hearing about it. The whole thing is disgusting. I expressed my outrage on Monday that the victims are being forgotten in the politics of this whole thing. But there is good news coming out of this, believe it or not. The first thing is, I think it's going to start to go away because it's only backfiring on the people that were clamoring to get this thing exposed. Why do I say that? Let's just review, okay? And this is all I'm going to spend on the story, and then we'll get to the fun part, which is Representative Jasmine Crockett doubling down on being dumb about this. Look at who's been exposed just in the past couple of days. And if you're tired of hearing about Epstein, I get it. So maybe you weren't aware of this stuff happening. Hakeem Jeffries, minority leader in the Senate, exposed throughout all of this as they're clamoring to release the Epstein files. What's Trump hiding? Exposed for him taking campaign donations from Epstein himself after he was already accused of being a pedo. Okay? That was the first one. How about Stacey Plaskett? This was the chick the other day who was exposed for taking advice from Epstein while he was still alive on how to handle the questioning of Michael Cohen in, 2019, in that House hearing. That was another one. Oh, how about this guy? Here's another one that got exposed. Larry Summers, former Clinton advisor and, until yesterday, Harvard professor, economic professor, who has had to resign from the board of OpenAI and Harvard, his job there, because he's literally named in these so-called Epstein files. So that's another one. We're on to 3. But maybe the best one of all, Jasmine Crockett. How about this one? Now, we've talked about her before because she is... she is just something. Representative from Texas. And you're thinking, well, I didn't vote for her. What the hell do I care? No, I understand that. But once they're in Congress, they do represent you. They represent us as a nation. So she gets up there, and it was an attempt to defend this Stacey Plaskett chick who was caught red-handed, exposed by the Washington Post in getting texting advice in real time from Jeffrey Epstein himself. Crockett, in an attempt to defend her, actually brings up Republicans who had taken campaign donations from people named Jeffrey Epstein. Here's the problem. Not that Jeffrey Epstein. Here's how it all started and how it all went down in flames for her. But this wasn't enough. No. If she had just left it there, maybe this one had gone away. But then she did media interviews after the fact to double down on being stupid.
Folks who also took money from somebody named Jeffrey Epstein, as I had my team dig in very quickly. Mitt Romney, the NRCC, Lee Zeldin, George Bush, Win Red, McCain Palin, Rick Lazio. I just want to be clear. If this is the standard that we're going to make, just know we're going to expose it all. And just know that the FEC filings, they are available for everybody to review. This is absolutely ridiculous.
Oh, they're available. Oh, they're publicly available, right? Which means she could also look at them and realize that the people she's talking about weren't that Jeffrey Epstein. But because they were named Jeffrey Epstein, she gets up there and tries to connect it to them. Now, that's bad enough, and that's really stupid. So here's the guy that she mentioned there, Lee Zeldin. He's the EPA administrator. He had run for governor of New York, but then he got a cabinet position. He's head of the EPA, apparently. Here's his response, and this was handled perfectly. If you're ever accused of something so incredibly stupid, it's a good lesson for all of us in a public forum on how to respond to it. Here's what Lee Zeldin says last night. When you find yourself in a hole, it's best to stop digging. The public FEC requirement report Crockett referenced on the House floor very clearly states that Jeffrey Epstein, who donated to my past campaign, was a physician, and the donation date was well after the, and he did this in exclamation points, other Jeffrey Epstein was already dead. Great way to handle that. But no, that wasn't enough. This is why you should never double down on stupid and never assume that these elected people of Congress, just because they're elected members of Congress, are any smarter than you and me. In fact, I would venture to guess that a lot of them are a lot dumber than us. She goes on CNN last night to try to defend herself and made it, about 1,000 times worse. Here she goes.
And Lee Zeldin there, he's now a cabinet secretary. He responded and said it was actually Dr. Jeffrey Epstein, who's a doctor that doesn't have any relation to the convicted sex trafficker. Unfortunate for that doctor, but that is who donated to a prior campaign of his. Do you want to correct the record on the people that...
Listen, I never said that it was that Jeffrey Epstein, just so that people understand when you make a donation, your picture is not there. And because they decided to spring this on us in real time, I wanted the Republicans to think about what could potentially happen, because I knew that they didn't even try to go through the FEC. So my team, what they did is they Googled, and that is specifically why I said a Jeffrey Epstein. Unlike Republicans, I at least don't go out and just tell lies.
Holy crap. Oh, no. I knew that. I was just trying to point out that there were a bunch of people you could accuse of being Jeffrey Epstein. They have it caught in real time. The whole topic of the conversation was the actual Jeffrey Epstein who was texting this Stacey Plaskett. But she tried to tie a bunch of randos named Jeffrey Epstein to these people she mentioned, like Lee Zeldin. You can't fix stupid. But don't ever double down on stupid. And again, the takeaway for us is don't assume these folks are smart in Congress, because you really can't. It's just absolutely amazing. But that's the good news. So again, sorry that it was even a topic to bring up, but they won't let it go. But they might be letting it go, and that's the good news. How badly is this entire thing backfiring on them? I mean, honestly, all politicians. This may actually go away once and for all, because talk about stupid. What did they push for? Jeffries, Plaskett, Larry Summers, Crockett, all looking bad in this. You know who's not? Yeah, you guessed it. The guy they tried to get with this. Another get Trump attempt that failed horribly. I don't know if this is the case. I've seen a lot of theories on this. I don't think this was the case. I really don't, because he was just pissed off he even had to talk about it in the first place. Trump hates talking about this. But there is a theory out there. One of my favorite new conspiracy theories is that this is how he played it all along. I don't happen to think that's the case, but if he did, if we ever find out that he played possum in this entire thing just to get them to make a bunch of noise about it and they got exposed themselves, that would be brilliant. I would love so much for that to happen, but I don't know. I don't really believe that theory, but boy, that would be something. All right, let's get to some holiday stuff, because now we are officially a week away from the Great American Holiday. All right, listen, here's another takeaway on this. Do you really think months out of a holiday, when the media tries to fearmonger and tell you all the things, do you really think they're basing that on anything other than the fact that they're trying to keep you scared and scary, panicking headlines? No. I'd put it at, I was trying to remember back, I think 3 months ago, maybe 4 months ago, I remember specifically all the stories, once again, all came out at the same time with the same wording, which tells you it's propaganda, telling you that this upcoming Thanksgiving, this coming fall in 2025, most Americans aren't going to be able to go anywhere this year. You know why? This was about the time when the headlines came out. They were all attacking the tariffs, right? You're not going to be able to afford turkey. You're not going to be able to fly. Gas is going to be so high through the roof that no one's going to be able to travel. Well, a report on gas just came out last week that said some of the lowest of the season so far. There's the first thing. Here's the second thing. This should tell you less and less of us are actually believing these panicking stories from the media. Why is that? Well, it comes out, this is always a story year after year after year. I've watched this happen for years, about the AAA expected travel volume for Thanksgiving. It always releases exactly 1 week before Thanksgiving, because this is when most people are putting the finishing touches on their travel plans. Are you ready? Remember the headlines. Prices are going to be so high, no one's going to drive. No one's going to drive or fly this Thanksgiving. Okay, well, let's get to reality. Here's the story. AAA expects a record number of Americans to travel for Thanksgiving. You don't say. Predicting the worst traffic days to be next Tuesday and Wednesday. Of course, that's always the thing. And then the Sunday and Monday following Thanksgiving. That always happens. They're expecting just under 82 million people to head out this year, up from 80 million last year. Hold on a second. But I was told that no one would be able to afford to travel. Yeah, that turned out to be a bunch of crap. And it also turns out that a lot of us believe the media, hype, panicking, fearmonger stories less and less these days, and that's the best news of all. 73.3 million will drive, 6 million will fly, 2.5 million, according to AAA, will take buses, trains, and other modes of transportation. Planes, trains, and automobiles? I don't know. Listen, the takeaway there is whenever they come out with these panicking stories about how bad things are going to be for an upcoming holiday and how horrible it is based on absolutely nothing but trying to keep you in your house, don't ever believe them. The other takeaway is don't fall into the trap of thinking these elected officials are any kind of elites. Are there some brilliant people in there? Oh, absolutely. Some, but they're few and far between because there are some really stupid people. Best evidence of all is what's happened the last few months. They try to expose this entire Epstein story and it's backfiring on them, and they're doubling down on stupid like Crockett. So don't be them. All right, a week out of Thanksgiving. More stuff on that is coming out tomorrow. Oh, we get the weekend before Thanksgiving to talk about tomorrow in the headlines. We'll talk about that. Otherwise, I'm out of material. You need to get into your Thursday, make it a wicked awesome one. Don't forget the replay on all your favorite platforms for the podcast there, also audio podcast, and put notifications on for you know when we're coming up live. Thanks for hanging out. Make it a wicked awesome Thursday. We'll talk to you tomorrow.